Coming up in our next installment of America's Hope, all of us remember what happened the day that children were shot and killed at a school in Uvalde. And now there is hope rising in the midst of that tragedy. We'll introduce you to one man who wrote a song representing the lives of those 19 children and 2 adults. It's called Crayons From Heaven. And we'll hear from the mother of young 10-year-old Eliahna Torres. Sandra Torres joins us in our next installment of America's Hope. Good evening, I'm Kelly Wright, and this is America's Hope. Tonight we're focusing on the despair that unfolded 17 months ago in Uvalde. 19 children and 2 adults were killed, gunned down in their Robb Elementary School. In the wake of that tragedy, we saw families scrambling to make sense of what happened to their loved ones. Tonight, we're going to talk about the healing process that is still underway in Uvalde. We'll hear from the mother of young Eliahna Torres. She was just 10 years old. She was one of the 19 little angels. We're also going to hear from the president of the Uvalde Foundation For Kids and what that organization has been doing to put a stop to school violence, not only in the Texas area, but throughout the United States. And certainly that is a very heavy lift and a tall order, but something must be done. And then we're also going to hear tonight from Jay Dominguez, who wrote a song in tribute to the 19 children and the 2 adults, a tribute song called Crayons From Heaven. And that's our focus tonight. Crayons From Heaven. Let's get started. Our first guest tonight will talk to us about what's happening in Uvalde. There have been some changes in Uvalde recently. We heard a report about the fact that there is now going to be a new school built, a new Robb Elementary School, the scene of where tragedy unfolded in 2022. Michael Stevens joins us now. Michael is the Uvalde Foundation For Kids president. It is a nationally registered nonprofit charity organization dedicated to changing the cultural trajectory of violence impacting our nation's schools. Students, school communities, from nonviolence education programs to bullying prevention, safety training, to school crisis response advocacy on behalf of the students, their families, school communities. Michael, it's good for you to join us this hour. And when you started this foundation, obviously we know what served as the impetus for you doing this, but I've got to ask you your personal why you got involved.
Well, for me, I've been in education for a little over a decade. I come from a family of educators. My wife is also an educator. We have 3 children in the public education system. And so it's very personal for me. This is something that I made into a career. And when it happened so close to home, the Uvalde shooting took place a little over an hour from where I actually live. And so it wasn't just something that happened in a similar, a work environment, but it was something that happened really close to home. There were families that were affected that both my wife and I personally knew. And so it was an extremely personal tragedy that took place for us. And getting involved and finding some way to help prevent any atrocity of this scale taking place again was something that I absolutely needed to get involved with.
You know, Michael, I appreciate you doing this and getting involved. I believe that all Americans in some way, somehow need to get involved in this crisis that we have unfolding before our very eyes. Mass shootings. There have been more than 540 mass shootings so far this year. We're not even done with the year yet.
Right.
Each episode of a mass shooting, does it remind you of those 19 children and 2 adults at the Robb Elementary School in Uvalde? Does it bring
It
that back?
it does. It absolutely brings it back, and also brings to light that despite how awful that tragedy was and is still for the community, um, we're kind of really haven't moved on from that point in terms of doing something to prevent it on a national scale. And so every time I see something similar in the news, it brings it back. Yes, sir.
The organization, the Uvalde Foundation for Kids, what are you doing to try to quell the violence and prevent particular school violence from taking place?
Well, that's our sole mission is we are dedicated to ending school violence in any form, whether it be bullying and obviously these mass tragedies that have unfortunately taken place and become common in our country. We have several programs that we have initiated. They are all volunteer programs, from school patrols to advocacy on behalf of students and parents. One of our biggest pushes that we have is our 888 number, where students, parents can call in if they've noticed anything online, because a lot of times these things can be prevented because somebody will post something, or they've noticed something at school, and so that way we can get in touch with the right officials, whether into local, whether it be at the school or if it's the local law enforcement.
You know, I'm glad you established that 888 number. Can you give it to us? Because that's an important component to have, another tool that perhaps a student or a teacher or a parent, if they hear of something that is a plot or they hear of a threat, they can call you in advance of anything ever happening to help law enforcement and even school officials readily respond to a potential crisis.
Right. Well, it's 888-685-8464, and it's a 24-hour number. It is anonymous for those who call in.
That's very important. Have you received calls about something that portends disaster?
We have. We actually we do receive calls pretty regularly regarding possible threats that have been made online, students have made via social media. And at that point, we pass the information along again to either school officials or to local law enforcement. There have been several instances where a few of the online postings had some credibility to them, that were able to be stopped before they got any farther. So we are excited and proud of that fact, that we do have that number and that ability to help potentially stop any sort of future atrocity from taking place at our schools.
You know, Michael, that's something we don't hear a lot about often enough. The fact that your proactive approach with the organization, the Uvalde Foundation for Kids, is really helping people, because just the fact that you've revealed that information, that means not only are you seeing something, saying something, but you're doing something.
Right.
Isn't that the posture all of us should be taking?
Absolutely. Unfortunately, we can't all be involved in politics, and that's a whole nother can of worms. And if we rely on our politicians, as we've noticed since I've been aware of this, when I was a high school senior, Columbine took place.
So, Michael, you were in high school when Columbine happened, and now you find yourself becoming proactive yet again to try to prevent future episodes of school violence.
Absolutely. We haven't really seen a lot of national help from our legislators in Washington to do anything worthwhile to really help prevent these atrocities from taking place in our campuses. So this is a great way that anyone anywhere can get involved to do their part to try to help prevent these atrocities from taking place again in the future.
Michael, a lot of people are kind of just throwing their hands up in the air saying, it's another mass shooting, another mass shooting, another mass shooting. The media rolls in and they stay there for a week to 2 weeks to see the grieving process unfold and the horror of the tragedy unfold. And then it just seems to fade away into the woodwork. The Uvalde Foundation for Kids, you're not allowing that to happen. You're reminding people quite frequently about what happened there, and then what can be done to stop it. What's your goal, your overall goal?
So our overall goal is to end school violence as we know it in the United States. And again, that's something that takes all of us getting involved in and doing something. And as you said, you're exactly right. Unfortunately, we have shooting after shooting in our school systems, and the media rolls in, and people are upset, and politicians make it a speaking point. And then after a while, when unfortunately the grief comes to a settling point. It's forgotten until the next one. And if we don't get involved and do something, it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. And it's going to happen again. And we're going to continue to go through this cycle until something is done, or unfortunately until it's just so horrific that we're put in a point where we have to do something drastic. As we have done in our airports with security and the way that's changed over the decades because of the horrific events of 9/11. And our goal again is we need to stop that. We need to stop this cycle. And if we're not going to get the help that we need from our politicians, then we need to get involved instead of just complaining about it or wishing something would happen or passing it along to somebody else. Getting involved, being active in our schools and on the campuses to prevent this from occurring again.
Do you see healing taking place?
I do see healing taking place. I've been to Uvalde multiple times. My wife has family in the area, and so we travel to and through Uvalde. The thing is not something that just goes away overnight. It doesn't go away in a year, and it's such a small community. When you go through Uvalde, it's hard to easily forget it. The reminders are there. The memorials are there everywhere you turn. It seems like there's a reminder of what took place that day because it is such a small community, and I don't know that will ever actually go away. The grief may lessen, but what happened there is going to be ingrained in that city for years to come, if not decades to come.
What's your hope for Uvalde?
My hope for Uvalde is that they are an example to the rest of the United States of not only what needs to be done, but how you can move on from such a tragedy.
Michael, thank you for what you're doing with Uvalde Foundation for Kids. Thank you for your care and your compassion for the people living in Uvalde and, of course, United States. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Let's talk again in the future. Let's keep reminding people what can be done to stop school violence. Michael Stevens,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next, I'll be talking to Jay Dominguez and Sandra Torres. That's next on America's Hope. Guest I'm about to introduce you to has something and has done something to remind us all about Uvalde and all of the people in that community, bringing them together and thereby bringing America together with hope. His name is Jay Dominguez. He joins us now. Jay, good of you to join us this hour. I appreciate what you're doing there to help people in your area, but it started as a result of you seeing this tragedy unfold and you wanted to do something, and you did it by utilizing your gift, your music. Talk to me about it, please.
Well, good morning. What happened was, I had been retired. I retired from music about 25 years ago. I used to have a band, a country band, and I used to perform all over the place with different acts. And but in the 90s, I retired from playing and totally gave it up and got rid of all my equipment. So I was working at a music store. I'm in the music instrument business, and I was working with a company called Hermes Music. And so I just got involved with that and forgot about playing. People would ask me about it, and I would just shun the question and turn the page, and just totally forgot. So when this tragedy happened in Uvalde, I was, I'm a grandfather of 4 children, and I love them to death. And I said I couldn't handle losing one. They lost 19. So, and then their 2 teachers. So that was really, it impacted me a lot and hurt me so much. So I started thinking, how terrible it was that the children didn't get a chance to say goodbye to their parents, and the parents didn't get a chance to say goodbye to the children. And I said, well, how unfair that is. It's terrible enough to lose each other, they didn't even get a chance to. When children are in a hospital and their illness is, they're sick or something, and they go to heaven, at least the parents are there to give them a kiss and bless them. But in this case, the parents dropped them off at 7:15 in the morning and told them, okay, we're going to pick you up at 1:30, and we're going to go have a big old Sunday, milkshake or whatever, and celebrate. And they never got to see them again. So that really, it bothered me. And I says, I thought about how I grew up. I grew up in a Hispanic neighborhood, and I remember getting up on a Saturday morning after Friday night lights activities, and I remember getting up, going through my front door and kind of stretching, and looking next door to Miss Hernandez's neighbor, and on her sidewalk, I'd see like three, maybe four kids already, 11 o'clock, congregating, drawing with the chalks on the sidewalk, right? And that's how children are, and then, well, I would go back in and have breakfast, orange juice, whatever. I'd come back about 1 o'clock, all showered and ready to take off on a Saturday afternoon. And then I'd look to the same position. Now there was 6 or 7 of them. And I says, well, that's how children are. They're being children. And they love to do the crayons, the red, yellow, green, those chalks. And I says, well, you know what? It brought some comfort to me because I says, well, you know what? There's 19 of them up in heaven. And they're probably all together coloring in the streets of heaven. So that's where I got the idea for Crayons from Heaven.
Wow. That is so touching and poignant of how children in many Hispanic neighborhoods actually gather around. Children in a lot of neighborhoods, as you know, gather around and they have the crayons. I'm reminded when tragedy unfolded during COVID, how children in my neighborhood would go out and actually use their crayons or colored chalk to write on the sidewalk, be safe, pray, hope, God is with you.
That's right.
And I think the families in Uvalde and families from all of these mass shootings that have taken place, even going back to New Haven, to Connecticut with the Sandy Hook shooting that took place there many years ago. You've made a very strong impression upon the family members there in Uvalde. How have they responded to Crayons from Heaven, which is a wonderfully named song?
Well, it's been really tremendous, and again, I was working for this company, right? He just returned to business in San Antonio, and like I said, our company is called Hermes Music, and they're very well known. But we had retired for 17 years, so this was in March, and we had opened our doors during December. And I says, God, I need some help. I wrote this song for the children, for Uvalde. I go, but I've been so busy promoting the store that I need help. I need for you to help me get this song to Uvalde. My plans had been to go to Uvalde, spend a couple of days, park in a restaurant every day and drink coffee and get to meet people. But I couldn't because of my obligation to my company. So one day in March, I was coming out of the warehouse, and as I'm coming through right in front of the drums, there was a couple looking at some drums there. And as I'm walking around and I make the right turn and I'm facing him, and the husband goes, I know you. And he said it kind of not very, I said, oh, great. This is one of our old customers. What did we do to him back then? He goes, I know you. And I'm in my mind, my blood's kind of going down on my feet, and I said, oh man, how am I going to handle this? Right. And he says, what's your name? And I said, Jay Dominguez. He goes, yeah, I remember you. And he points to his wife and he says, babe, this is the guy who sold us all the equipment with that Tejano band we had back in the early 2000s. And he goes, yeah, man. He goes, Jay, remember me? I know, well, what band were you with? And he told me the band. And I go, yeah, you guys made it. I mean, congratulations. So my blood now is coming back to my body, and I'm relaxing now. Okay, it wasn't a bad experience here. So we started talking, and I didn't know who they were. Okay, I didn't know. And right as, I said, well, thank you so much. I go, we just opened, and gave him the little opening spill. And I said, tell your friends about us. I always end my last statement with new customers. Tell your friends about us. We're back. So as I said, excuse me, and walked through them, this is the truth. This is what really happened. I gave 3 steps, 1, 2, 3, and then I heard her say, "Babe, we've got to go back to Uvalde."
Mm.
And I was about to give 4 steps and keep going because I was on a mission to find an equipment. And I said, Jay, she mentioned Uvalde. I mean, in my mind, there's a battle going on over here, right? Because I'm already going to do something, and now I heard, babe, we got to get back to Uvalde. And my mind, I mean, my conscience is telling me maybe God sent him to you. You asked him for help. So right there, I stopped because it was true. I had asked him for help about 3 weeks prior to that, and then so I turned around and I go, "Excuse me, did you mention Uvalde?" And she goes, "Yes, we live in Uvalde." Well, up to that point, I still didn't know who I was talking to, right? But there was somebody from Uvalde, so there was an opportunity for me to talk about my song. And I says, "Well, I wrote a song about Uvalde. Do you have time to hear it?" And they could have said no, right? And she goes, "Yes, we do." And the husband said, "Yeah, we do." So I took them over to a little corner at our store, and there's a bench there where people try out the accordions. And they sat down. And I went and got my iPhone from my desk there and bring it back. They were sitting down. Someone, I'm standing on top of them, showing them the song, so they could hear it. And halfway through the song, they started crying.
Mm.
I mean, crying like if they were in a funeral.
Mm.
So I'm going, "Oh my God, Jay, what are you doing? You're the manager here, and look what you're doing to the customers." I didn't know who they were yet, and they were like crying hard. And I says, "Oh my God, ma'am, I'm very," and I was standing over them, right? And I go, "Ma'am, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take you to this place, sir," because he was crying too, really hard. And they both go, "No, no, Jay, you're all right." They go, "You're all right. Look." And so she gets her phone and she shows me the picture of her little girl, and it's the little girl with the green baseball outfit.
Yeah.
And that picture, when the day of the accident, the tragedy, it really struck me because green jersey, green pants, the cap, and the bat on her shoulder. And I like sports, and she was all dressed up like in a game. And she goes, "This is our little girl. Her name was Eliahna." I go, "I know that picture. I've seen it in the news." She goes, "Yeah, she's our little girl, and we lost her, in that tragedy." I says, "Oh my God." I says, "I'm so sorry." And I didn't know. I didn't know, and but all of a sudden, like, it was like a godly thing, it connected us there. I mean, who'd have thunk it? And so we got to become friends, and after we both finished crying and consoling each other, and then I said, "Well, would you like a copy of the song?" She goes, "Really? Can we have one?" And I says, "Look," I said, "this song's not mine." I said, "It's your song. I wrote it
Mm.
for you all." I said, "I wanted to bring you some comfort and healing after what you all went through." And so I, texted him a copy of the song. So we became friends after that. And about 3 weeks later, she calls me. She goes, "Jay, we just had a meeting about the anniversary that's going to happen here, the remembrance of the tragedy. And all the parents have heard your song, and they really like your song. They love it. There's been a lot of crying. This song makes people cry." And then I said, well, thank you. I said, "I'm glad that they like it." And she goes, "Well, that's not all." I go, what else? What's up?" She goes, "Well, they've asked me to ask you to come and play your song at the anniversary, so remembrance that we're having." And I said, "Really?" I mean, I hadn't played in over 20 years. I had retired. I work at a music store, and sometimes I'll get involved and sell a guitar or whatever, but I don't really play anymore. And I didn't even have a guitar anymore, but I found a guitar in one of my storages back in July when the tragedy happened.
Yeah.
It's all like a godly thing because I found a guitar in the storage. I saw it and I didn't know that I had a guitar for 30 years. It's been in the storage. So that's the song that I wrote, Crayons From Heaven. And it took me I guess about maybe 2.5, 3 hours to write. I mean, it was like one line, follow the next line and the next line.
And
And
and and so
so,
so what happened when did you accept the invitation and go to Uvalde?
yeah, yeah. I was like really nervous. I hadn't played in years. I've been around instruments because that's my livelihood, but I had not performed. But I couldn't say no, and so I just pray to God to help me, and there I go. I went to Uvalde, and that night I performed, and the song, and I had some friends from the radio station in San Antonio. It's a radio rock station called Kiss, and they all work in the office. and they had called me because I've known them for years. 'Cause I've been doing this since many years, and they called me and said, "Jay, we're here in Uvalde. We came to support you." And I says, "Really?" I says, "It's far, 75 miles, and tonight it's dangerous going back." She goes, "We're here. There's four of us, all from the office of that station, and we're here to support you." And then I go, "Okay, well, good." And then when I'm running a sound check, I have my phone in my back pocket and it's buzzing, right? I couldn't answer because I'm practicing the song sound check. And when I'm done, I checked it out and it's her, and she's saying, "Jay, if you're looking at a clock, look at 12 o'clock." So I go that way. She goes, "Now look at 11." And I see her waving like that. She goes, "We're over here. I wanted you to see where the girls and I are. And I go, "Okay. And so that night when I'm performing the song, again, my phone, I feel it vibrating. And after the song, I check, see who called me at that time while I'm playing. And it was them again. And she goes, "Jay, everybody around us is crying as I'm
Yeah.
performing the song. And the place was packed. It was at a real pretty outdoor venue, and it's by the river there in Uvalde, in
Yeah.
an amphitheater. And so, I mean, the song is, I don't know, it's taken off. And like I said, I wrote the song, because I didn't feel it was fair that the parents didn't say goodbye to their children and the children didn't say goodbye to them. And when I was thinking of the song and how I grew up, I go, well, that's one way to communicate,
Absolutely. So,
but
Jay, in the song, what are your lyrics saying to the parents?
well, I mean, it's the very opening lyrics. It says, "Mommy, Daddy, please don't cry. We're all doing great here in heaven."
Hmm.
And it's like them letting them know. And then later on, the parent talks to them, right? Because the song keeps talking from the children, from their, "We're doing great. We're coloring. We're sending you letters, with our crayons from heaven." And then now the father, in the Hispanic culture, the father is supposed to be real tough, but and the family and to the wife and the kids, we melt down. So we use the word "mi vida," my life. And we use that term when we're talking to our wives, mi vida, my life, and the kids too, like, "You're my life." And so we use that term very loosely. So in the second, third verse of the song, when the parents are talking, the father, it says there, "My darling, my love, the days are so long now, I can't believe you're gone," and he says there, "You're my life," and "My darling, my life," he says that. And so it's not him talking back to them. So, I mean, it just happened. One line followed the other line. And
Yeah. Jay, it sounds like it was a divinely inspired song and divine timing for the families there of those 19
right?
angels, as you said, plus the two teachers who lost their lives as well.
Yes.
Uh, I want to thank you for writing that song and sharing it with us on America's Hope. Your
May I
song,
say one more
actually,
thing?
yes, please.
Well, during this whole process, when I was copywriting the song and going through the BMI process, they asked me where they wanted my royalties to go to in case the song was to take off. They go, because when I was talking to the lady at the BMI and copyright, she really thought the gesture was awesome. And she goes, "Well, you might have something here. She goes, "Well, where do you want us to send your royalties? We pay you once a year now." And I go, "Wait a minute." I go, I want 80% of whatever's gathered here to go to the parents. I go, because it's their song. I go, so if you're going to send any money, I said, you send them 80% first, or whatever. The 20% can go to me so I can I'll do something else for them too. But I go, but I want 80% of this song to go to the parents. And I talked to them so they could open a bank account in Uvalde, get your committee going and get two people, and they can be, but it's once a year that this can, but when you do something like that, it's not just for 1 year, it's for the next year, the next year, the next year. And it would bring me, nothing would make me happier than for the parents to get some money. And one of them built a playroom for the rest of the kids,
Mhm.
and another one would buy a van to go camping in the summer, and another one goes to Disneyland from that song from their children.
Jay, thank you. Thank you for giving those families hope and actually giving hope to the community of Uvalde. Uh, I appreciate you listening to that inner voice that says you can do this, and also Crayons from Heaven. What an incredible title. Thank you for joining us on America's Hope.
Thank you, sir.
Jay Dominguez, Crayons from Heaven. Make sure you go online and get a copy of it, download it, so that 80% can go to the family members of the children and the 2 teachers who passed during the tragic shooting that took place in Uvalde. We're back with more in just a moment. And welcome back to America's Hope. So we've just heard from Jay Dominguez and the wonderful gift that he created. And as he stated, it was a download to him from God to write this song, Crayons from Heaven. So joining me now is a mother of one of the children there at the Uvalde school, who has a lot to say. In fact, she was instrumental in helping that song by Jay Dominguez be heard by other parents and the entire community. Sandra Torres joins us now. Sandra, thank you for joining us on America's Hope. The first thing I need to say to you is how sorry I am for the loss of your daughter on that day. But I'd like to talk to you about what's happened since then with your chance meeting of Jay Dominguez and then helping the community hear this song, Crayons from Heaven. When you heard that, what did it mean to you?
It had a lot of meaning. It was real comforting because that morning we had gone to San Antonio. My car needed an oil change, so my boyfriend and I went in separate cars. So on my way to the dealership, I had just got an email from the Texas Tribune, and there was an article that I wish I never opened. So I was having a rough moment. I broke down, and it was hard. So I waited there, and my boyfriend came to pick me up, and he said that he needed to go to a music store. So he mentioned Sam Ash and Guitar Center. So I'm like, okay. But on our way that way, something told him to turn into Hermes. So we go there, and I'm trying to fix myself up. We're walking, and all of a sudden, we're talking about Uvalde, and all of a sudden, this man approaches us and says, "Did y'all mention Uvalde?" And we said, yes. So he's all like, "I have something for Uvalde." But the way he said it was like, he was excited and emotional at the same time. So he goes, "I'll be right back. Take a seat." So he sat us, and he went to the back and came back with a cell phone. So he starts playing a song. And as soon as it starts, and the first wording of where the little girl's telling her mommy that everything's going to be okay, that she's okay up in heaven, I just broke down. Like, that was something that I needed to hear after what I had just read. And so I started crying, and he paused it and said, "I'm sorry I didn't ask, were y'all affected by this by any chance or whatever?" And I let him know, yes, my baby was a victim. So he started crying really bad, and then my boyfriend started crying. So we were just all crying, and I asked him if he can continue the song, in which he did, and it was a very comforting song. It brought peace to my heart, and it was something that I really needed to hear in that moment.
You know, just you're talking about it, it's emotional even now. Being a father myself and a grandfather, I can only imagine what you must have felt when you heard that song, bringing you comfort at a time that you needed it most. And the fact that it opened up with the lyric of a little girl saying to her mommy, "Everything's okay, I'm all right." Crayons from Heaven. You know, it's when you look back on that moment when you heard that song, how did you move it forward to bring other members of the community to that understanding that this song was made on behalf of 19 little angels and 2 adults? How did you bring the rest of the community together, and what was their response to Crayons from Heaven?
Whenever we came back to town and stuff, and then we got together with some of the family members, we let them hear the song, and they as well started crying because we all have our different moments, but we all grieve the same grief of the loss of a child, and it was very comforting for them. Like they cried, and we handed them CDs, and it was like, how can I put it to you? The song came. It was like God sent. It came at the right moment.
Yeah, the right moment for a time as painful as this, but you never let go of your loved ones. You always remember them.
Yes.
For your daughter, Eliahna, is this the kind of song that she would have liked as well? And the lyrics in it, is it what you think that she would have said to you?
Yes. Most definitely.
For you and the family members, you're trying to move on, you're trying to heal. But it's still there. How do
Yeah.
you help each other heal from this tragedy and the brokenness that you all have encountered collectively?
Yes. I wouldn't say moving on. I would say moving forward. Like we're trying to move forward. We're trying to be there for each other. Like with the other families, we're on a group message, and we'll message each other and like try to spend more quality time with each other. If you need a shoulder to cry on, I'll be that shoulder, and we can cry together. Like um, trying like to move forward, as in we're gonna do this together. Like we're gonna share this together. We're gonna move forward together. We're gonna like we'll have get-togethers as much as possible, and just trying to comfort one another when one's having a bad day.
What you said is so important to healing, and as you said, moving forward, to reach out and help each other and embrace each other. It seems to me that it was a close-knit community to begin with, but after the tragedy, you drew even closer. In fact, you had to draw closer in order to survive and overcome this.
Yes.
So these are now your brothers and sisters in
Yes.
grief, but your brothers and sisters in healing.
Hmm.
What can we who were not there learn from your sad experience, but also to understand the importance of Americans holding on to each other in times of sorrow, in times of pain, and holding on to each other to hold on to hope?
um the moving forward part, to always tell your loved ones that you love them, and don't take anything for granted, because you never know when this can happen again, because more than likely it will. um Try to stay united as possible. We don't wish this upon anybody else. um
I understand,
this
Sandra.
thing.
I understand. I understand. I think you said it very clearly. Help each other, pray together, hold on to each other, stand united. And again, I thank you for joining us. I didn't want to make this a long interview, but I did want to at least talk to you about the song Crayons from Heaven because of what it means to you and the family members. This is a program about hope, and we understand that hope sometimes is fleeting. We can't see it, we can't taste it, we can't touch it when we're grieving. But I sense from you this incredible strength and hope that you have to keep, as you said, moving forward. Am I right about that? You have this faith and hope that keeps you
Yes.
moving forward with the love that you have for
Yes.
your family.
Yes.
Sandra, I want to thank you for joining us on America's Hope and weighing in on this wonderful song, Crayons from Heaven. We're going to play it for the world to hear.
Thank you. It's a very comforting song.
And before leaving, what is it you want the world to know about the hope that you hold on to?
The hope I hold on to is that one day I'm going to see my baby girl again. And all I ask of everybody is to always remember their name, never forget our children.
Yeah, never forget.
Never forget.
We will never forget you, Sandra, or your daughter, Eliahna, or the other angels as well. Thank you for joining us on America's Hope, and know that my prayer is always with you and the other family members. I know there's still a heavy load to lift, but I pray that that song and this moment that you and I have shared has been some uplift to you. And I am with you in spirit and in prayers. Love you. God bless you.
Love you. Thank you for having me. Yes.
Thank you, Sandra. We'll be back in just a moment. And welcome back to America's Hope. I truly want to thank our guests for coming on tonight. Sandra Torres, our hearts continue to go out to her, and our prayers for not only Sandra, but the other family members of loved ones who were lost in Uvalde at the Robb Elementary School. And then we want to thank Jay Dominguez for writing the song Crayons from Heaven. And of course, thanking Michael Stevens for the incredible work that he's doing to try to not only say something, but do something through the Uvalde Foundation for Kids. In closing tonight, let us all remember that we have a responsibility of being our brother's keeper, not our brother's killer. We have the responsibility of not only seeing something, but trying to do something to stop the spread of violence and mass shootings. And in closing tonight, we'll leave you with that song that Jay wrote for those 19 little angels and the 2 adults. It's called Crayons from Heaven. Good night, America.
Mommy, Daddy, please don't cry. We're all doing great here in heaven. The streets seem to be more colorful now with our crayons from heaven. Please don't be sad. There isn't any sorrow, only laughter and joy for all of your tomorrows. We'll be sending you letters all through the years with our crayons from heaven. As I look at the heavens over that Uvalde sky, your memories appear and draw a smile on my face. We will always be together and you'll always be mine. Thank God for crayons from heaven. My darling, always appear and draw a smile on my face. We will always be together and you'll always be mine. Thank God for crayons from heaven. My darling, my life, the days are so long now. I miss you so much, I can't believe you're gone. My heart was torn apart when you had to go, and I know that life changes, but I'll always love you so. 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 I'll always love you so.
Your America and my America.
United we stand, divided